Gettysburg, the final battle of the United States Civil War. My backyard for most of my childhood. We moved to the area when I was 9. Many people have ghost stories from their visits here, and I am no different. Here are 4 of my personal creepy tales from around Gettysburg. 1. Theater Camp. I was involved in a summer program when I was in middle school for kids with high grades. It was held at Gettysburg College, so we'd have access to the campus, and it got us possibly interested in going there for college. One year, my friend Kayla, I'll call her for anonymity, and I decided to go for the theater course. We tried to choose the same courses when we could, but her being a grade ahead of me sometimes prevented that. It was a few or week-long course. I think it was a week-long course in which by the end we'd have a sort of variety show to present to our parents of little skits we had written/put together. Well, we were a few days into the program and loving every bit of it. Having access to the theater on campus that the college kids used in the school year was awesome to our young selves. Yeah, we were nerds looking forward to college, but that was about to change. We had just come back from lunch at the cafeteria and were allowed a quick bathroom break before needing to get back to work. I quickly took a bathroom break and hurried back and got set, but I noticed Kayla hadn't gotten back yet. I figured she'd be in shortly, so I got to work. Kayla came back eventually, surprised to see me on the stage. I noticed and gave her a look, and she said, "You weren't just out in the hall behind me at the water fountain?" I was like, "No." "Well, was anyone?" "No." "Okay," because someone was just right behind me at the fountain, breathing down my neck. I thought you were sneaking up on me to fool around, but it just felt also like someone bigger and like a man. I don't know what to think, she said. We later found out there is in fact an old man ghost that haunts the theater, and that he appears to and whenever someone who has a future in theater is at the theater. 2. Devil's Den, Penny. Devil's Den is my favorite area of Gettysburg battlefield. I'm not sure why, but there's just something about the giant rock formation that pulls me to it, and I always loved exploring. I often wandered around the rocks when we were in the area. We took family that came to visit us out to Gettysburg often. One of these trips, I found a penny, lucky side up, on one of the rocks as we were about to leave Devil's Den. My parents called for me, and I figured to leave the good luck for the next person to find. Later, my mother got one of the Ghosts of Gettysburg books by Mark Nesbitt. I was reading it when I found the story of the penny at Devil's Den. According to the story, every person who picks up and takes the so-called lucky penny seems to have a terrible accident or some tragedy befall them. Not shortly after I saw the penny, but before I had read this story, I had broken my ankle while playing with the neighbor kids celebrating the 4th of July. It was a hairline fracture I hadn't even noticed, but thinking back on it, I think just my thinking about taking that penny endangered me and caused my broken ankle. Number 3. The Jenny Wade House. One of my first visits in Gettysburg, shortly after we moved in, was a visit to the Jenny Wade House. For some quick backstory for those who don't know, Jenny Wade was the only civilian killed in the battle when she was struck down by a stray bullet that tore through her door while she was baking bread for soldiers in her kitchen. There's also a tragic love story with her and a soldier and her family or something. You can look it up. Her story's interesting. Well, my mother, brother, and I visited the house, taking a guided tour. My brother was bored out of his skull and couldn't enjoy it, and later told us he felt creeped out in the upstairs. I was old enough, I enjoyed the tour, and didn't feel anything negative about it, until we went down to the basement. Now, the setup they had in the basement was already unsettling. It was set up the way it was assumed to look when Jenny passed. Mannequins of her parents and her love standing kneeling next to a body under a sheet. This was where Jenny breathed her last. I was hit by an overwhelming depression and a heaviness I had never known till then. The tour seemed to take forever to wrap up, and to make it worse, they took questions at the end, standing in the basement the whole time. I began to feel ill, off, and ready to cry just as the last question was answered. And before I knew, we were ushered up the cellar steps to the street outside the house. I told my mom, oh, thank goodness, I needed to get out of there. She had slightly noticed how not okay I was, and asked, and I explained to her as best I could that it wasn't fear, but something got to me there. Again, we later were reading Ghosts of Gettysburg, one of the books, and lo and behold, in the Jenny Wade house, people have reported feeling crushing sadness and heaviness down in the basement, or just walking in the house. My mother knew then I wasn't just making it up, she was creeped out. And 4. Fog on the Road. My most recent creepy incident at Gettysburg occurred just about 5 years back. I was meeting up with a friend who just so happened to be in the area and didn't know well, but wanted to see the battlefield at night. This friend was a fellow psychic, so I was interested in seeing if the both of us would bring anything out. We started at the Peace Light Memorial just as the sun was setting, and it got dark. Security eventually came and asked us to leave. We didn't want any trouble, so we acquiesced. We jumped in his car to drive around and see if we could still make contact despite being in the car. It was a clear, warm summer night with a gorgeous moon visible in the sky. We drove around the back of the college from the Peace Monument and may have been somewhere around 34 and Barlow Knoll, in that area on some road I can't remember the name of, when suddenly there came a decent patch of fog. It seemed to have come out of nowhere and looked almost to be moving in one great mass from one side of the forest to the other. My friend could tell, I think, that what we were coming upon was not just fog. There were no big bodies of water around or any way that fog could have been created that night. As we got to the middle, the heaviest of the fog, my friend slowed the car's movement considerably, and I got goosebumps and felt tight in my chest with fight-or-flight feelings. I begged and begged my friend to speed up and just continue our ride. Eventually he did speed up and we got through it and continued on. He admitted to me he could definitely tell and felt something similar to my thoughts and apologized for making me uncomfortable. I don't think he saw anything, but the fog was certainly creepy. If you made it all the way to the end here, thanks for listening. I hope you subscribe to my channel and help me out over on my Patreon and Hatreon accounts. Details are in the description below, and don't forget, fear, it's what preserves us.